Welcome back to College Football Talk with Peter Burtonette, and just want to wish all of you a very Merry Christmas ahead of time and a happy holidays, however you celebrate this time of the year. I hope you have a fantastic time as we prepare for the biggest games of the college football season, ultimately the college football playoff. And in this video, we're going to be going over the road to the college football playoff for the two teams that will be matching up in the Rose Bowl. The next video that I make will either be a quick review or maybe preview or just kind of a look at the Army-Navy game as a whole, the history behind it, and depending on when I record either this year's result or previewing this year's game. Both teams right now heading into it are fighting for bowl eligibility, both teams 5 and 6. But again, this video will be focusing on Alabama. But if you go on to enjoy this video, please consider leaving a like, subscribe to the channel, and turn on those post notifications so you're always up to date. But without further ado, let's dive into it. On the flip side, there's a team that has been at the top of college football for a while, and that is the Alabama Crimson Tide, and they started the season in complete dominance, went over Middle Tennessee State 56-7, no real issues there. But then the trouble started, and then Texas happened. The Bama offense was held to 3 field goals. Jalen Milroe was intercepted twice. They were outgained 454 to 362. Quinn Ewers passed for nearly 100 more yards than Milroe, actually over 100 yards more. And another thing, an issue that's popped up for Alabama a bit this season is the penalties. They were penalized 10 times for 90 yards, while Texas was just 4 for 40. And this game was in Tuscaloosa, so there's certainly, I don't think, is any sort of argument. I know this is kind of, in my opinion, a losing argument when fans are like, oh, the refs were against us and everything, and you see the penalties start to pile up. That's typically something that would happen. In this case, you'd expect that maybe to happen for Texas. Again, I don't think there's much merit behind that, really. I think it's just kind of an argument that people bring up when they can't really think of anything else to excuse their loss. But this game, it was Texas. They got the job done, and really, I think that's what allowed the Longhorns to be number 3 in the country. But I'll go over the Longhorns more in the other video to supplement this one, kind of the road to the college football playoff for both of these teams. And then the offense stalled out even more against South Florida. Jalen Milroe was out for this game. Ty Simpson and Tyler Buckner, the quarterback transfer from Notre Dame, combined to just throw 10 for 23 for 107 yards, so really not a very good game at all. They still got the win, 17-3 over the Bulls, who didn't have a good season at all. Roydell Williams, though, 17 rushes, 129 yards, and a touchdown. And then Jace McClellan, 13 for 74. Both of those guys have stepped up big time for the Crimson Tide throughout the season. So the defense, again, stands tall against number 15 Ole Miss, picking up a ranked win against the previously undefeated Rebels, 24-10. And then they get back-to-back road wins, comfortable at Mississippi State, 40-17. But then another one just kind of questionably close, and there were a few more of these that I'll go over briefly. 26-20 at Texas A&M. Milroe was kind of starting to get into a little bit more of a groove. He played well in this game against the Aggies. But again, it was really, when I was looking over this game and thinking about how it went when it happened, it was penalties again. Looking over the stats for this game. 14 penalties for 99 yards for the Crimson Tide, and that can kill a drive. That could be something that doesn't really show up on the stats as much when you're looking at total yards and stuff like that. And it, again, is an issue that's persisted a bit for the Crimson Tide, and it's something that could prove to be costly in a college football playoff semifinal. So definitely something to keep an eye on for a team that's typically, when it's coached by Nick Saban, very disciplined. And then next week, it's another questionable win, 24-21 at home against Arkansas. I think they actually outgained the Razorbacks. I'll have to verify. Maybe I'm looking at this wrong, but 415-250. But they were held to punts 7 times in the game. So ultimately struggled to get conversions on third down. I think the Razorbacks did as well. That's why they weren't able to capitalize too much. But overall, it's just Alabama can move the ball. They've got some good running backs like Williams and McClellan, and Milroe can make some plays. But at times, their offense has stalled out a little bit. But regardless, again, a Nick Saban coached team knows how to get wins when it matters most, even if it's not pretty. And I think that's what makes this Alabama team dangerous. It might not make them terribly scary, but I think what it shows is even when they don't bring their best game, they can still find a way to win. And I think that is so valuable, and that's why they're in this situation. Again, it might be at the expense of Florida State, but they're the number 4 team now. There's no changing that now, and Alabama, I think, is the right team at number 4. Getting past that, though, I talked about that more in my last video. Then they get 2 14-point wins in kind of revenge games from last year. 34-20 versus Tennessee and 42-28 against LSU. Defensively, they struggled to defend against the player who I think, if I voted, and I might make a separate kind of video about this specifically, Jaden Daniels for winning the Heisman Trophy. He has been such an incredible player throughout the season, and again, I'll talk more about that in probably another video. That one will that might be the next video before any sort of Army-Navy video, because that will be unveiled on Saturday, or maybe I'll just do a reaction. We'll see. Regardless, I think if that game is in Death Valley this year, obviously it was there last year, so it's not going to be there back-to-back years, but if it was flipped, I think it would have been a bit more tenuous for the Crimson Tide, but they get a 14-point win. And then they have just breeze through wins at Kentucky and home against Chattanooga to prepare for the Iron Bowl. So they go into this 10-1. And again, it's an issue of just kind of trudging along, not playing the best game. Yeah, it's on the road. Jordan-Hare is always a tough place to play. But it comes down to a 4th and 31. And again, to set up that play, it was a lack of discipline. But this Alabama team, even when they're not playing the most disciplined football, they do make the plays that they need to when they need to make those plays. And in this case, Jalen Milroe, 4th and 31, 4th and goal from the 31, pass into the back corner of the end zone, pinpoint pass. If you've seen the play, and I might pop up on screen while I'm recording, in post on this, you see it's just a perfect throw. It's a perfect spiral. It's placed right in the right place, and Isaiah Bond makes a perfect catch in the back corner of the end zone to ultimately deliver a Crimson Tide win. And the defense forced 3 Tigers turnovers, and the defense, again, that's something I'll go into in more detail when I preview this matchup, but the defense throughout this season has been really, really good for the Crimson Tide, as the best Alabama defenses typically are. Then finally, it comes down to the SEC Championship game, effectively a play-in game for the College Football Playoff. In this case, there was a little bit of missed opportunities for Georgia. A fumble and a missed field goal in the first half proved to be costly. Jalen Milroe made some key plays, and the Bulldogs actually even outgained Alabama only slightly, 321 to 306, and they were slightly better on 3rd down. Both teams were 2 for 2 on 4th down. But again, it's that fumble that proved costly, and Alabama getting the stops, and really Jalen Milroe getting the key plays, including a couple of late runs to seal the game at the end when Alabama needed a couple of first downs late, was able to find some space, find some grass, and get those first downs. And Alabama's defense played well in this game. A couple of stats that stood out: 7 tackles for loss and 5 pass deflections. The Bulldogs actually had 8 tackles for loss, but only 3 pass deflections. So in comparison, a strong defensive game for the Crimson Tide. And I think those are always good indicators. Tackles aren't always the best indicator, because obviously every single play, aside from touchdowns or going out of bounds, is going to end in a tackle. That's kind of something where you can more look at individual players. But regardless, the Alabama Crimson Tide then were chosen by the committee in that 4th spot ahead of 13-0 Florida State, and that is how Alabama got to the Rose Bowl. So going into this matchup, I will take probably a bit more of a look in the preview of this game, but just looking at both of these two teams, they are the 2 winningest teams in college football history. I think they both rank 1 and 2 in terms of most national titles of all time, and the prestige that both of these programs have are unmatched. Michigan with 1,002 wins all time. Alabama with something like 960 something, I believe. I'll pop up the number on that officially. Both teams with so much history. The Rose Bowl is kind of the perfect venue for this game, and I think it's kind of the perfect college football playoff semifinal. It'd be a perfect national championship too. But I think it is a huge game, something to look forward to, and it's interesting to look back at both of the paths of these two teams. But next video, or at least next video in this kind of mini-series, I might have another video or two on the channel before, I'll be taking a look at the routes for both Washington, the Huskies, number 2 in the country, 13-0, and the number 3 Texas Longhorns, how they got to the Sugar Bowl, where they'll be playing their college football playoff semifinal. If you watched at this point in the video, thank you so much for taking the time to watch College Football Talk. I'm your host, Peter Burtnett, signing out. Peace.